Next, I'd like to invite Guru Parulkar to give us an introduction to software-defined infrastructure. Guru is truly a guru when it comes to SDN. He is the Executive Director of ONRC and ON.Lab, and also the Chair of the Open Networking Summit. So please welcome Guru Parulkar.
Let me tell you about this software-defined infrastructure. I really think this is the best opportunity that comes once in 20 years. So let me tell you why. So when we talk about infrastructure, there are three components: networking, servers, and storage, and that you have been hearing about it. And the idea is that each one of this component of infrastructure represents approximately $100 billion industry. Okay, I'm not a marketing guy, so I may not get the exact number, but approximately that. Interesting thing is that each one of these components is undergoing a major, or at least that component needs a major change. What is the evidence of it? I'm just telling you, so that is not the evidence. So let me tell you, right? I run an open networking summit, which is about software-defined networking. Attendance is going through the roof. If you look at market predictions, you can see that it is going up. The important thing to note is that within 6 months, the market research agency is revising the projection upward from, I don't know what it is, to something like $4 billion. If you look at the standards organization that Dan runs, it has doubled in last 6 months. If you look at acquisitions in last year or so, you can see the pattern, right? Starting with Nicira, $1.3 billion, and the numbers are there. Then if you look at products announced, you heard from HP, you heard from other startup companies that are announcing products. If you look at the investments, again, it is going through an exponential curve. So when you see all of this, you know that something is happening, and this is only the networking part of SDI, not the storage, not the server part. Is anyone deploying it? Anyone benefiting from software-defined networking? These are the early adopters, and you can listen to their presentations at Open Networking Summit. Some of them are going to talk about here. Albert is going to talk about it from Microsoft. So all of these companies are starting to deploy software-defined networking and are starting to realize the benefits of it as well. So why such a big change? Why is it that people are wanting to do SDN or software-defined storage? So let me again focus on networking. That is what I'm familiar with. So if you look at networking, it is built using boxes that we call switches, routers, appliances like firewalls. If you look inside them, there are these 3 layers. What is unique about this? Okay, so these are the features that they provide. 50 million lines of source code that makes up this particular box. 6,000 RFC, these are the number of standards they try to implement. There is number of ASICs that make up the hardware, bloated, power hungry, but more importantly, these are large, complex, vertically integrated boxes, okay? And that is how we are deploying this infrastructure, and nobody who deploys the infrastructure is happy about it. That is, deploying it with these boxes that are closed, proprietary, not programmable, and people are paying 70% margin for these boxes. This is not a sign of a healthy industry. Okay, so not good for providers, not good for infrastructure owners, and it is not good for innovation either. Okay, another thing is that there is a new unit of computation that is emerging, and this is virtual infrastructure on demand. Being able to create your own virtual network that may have computing, storage, and appliances, and then you should be able to make use of it. And who needs it? All the way from a high school student that is trying to build a mobile app for iPhone, that person needs that virtual infrastructure in the cloud. If I am a web startup, you cannot go to a venture fund today and ask to build your own infrastructure. What they want you to do is use the infrastructure in the cloud so you can create that virtual infrastructure for your company. Nobody wants to pay for building your own infrastructure. If I'm an enterprise, again, I don't want to support this silo infrastructure. I want to support my user communities, give them virtual infrastructure in a cloud, either my own private cloud or give it in the public cloud, or cloud providers and service providers. So everyone wants to do this, but now imagine mapping this virtual infrastructure dynamically and scaling up and down on this closed infrastructure, closed proprietary infrastructure. There is a big mismatch, and that is why there is so much excitement about SDN, SDI. So how do SDN and SDI help? So let me give you a quick introduction of SDN, again something that I am familiar with. The whole idea is you are trying to lift all the complexity that is embedded into the boxes out of these boxes and make those boxes much simpler, and you put this software complexity in something called network operating system, and more importantly you have a vendor agnostic interface between this control plane and the data plane or the forwarding plane, which is much simpler, and so you can mix and match. okay, and you can create competition. But more importantly, what you're trying to do is for this network operating system to be able to build what we call a network map and bring this network map to all the people that want to program the application. Once you have this network map sitting in your fingertips, writing these applications on the top becomes piece of cake. And anyone can write these applications, you can write this innovative application much faster. And that is the promise of SDN, not the underlying infrastructure as much, but with this network operating system, if I can get you the network map, then you can do interesting stuff in networking, and that was something has not been possible forever. There is one more part, that is you can introduce the concept of virtualization, so you can virtualize the networking and then you can create these virtual infrastructures on demand much more easily. Okay? So if for example you operate the data center, what you could do is you can create for one tenant a virtual network, you can decide which specific services or functionality you need, you can insert that there on the virtual network. For another tenant, you can introduce another virtual network and decide what functionality you need, and so on and so forth. And I am using this example within the data center, but you can do that in an enterprise network, you can do that in the service provider network, and that is the promise of SDN, that is capturing people's imagination. I am not a storage guy, but I thought I should include at least one slide because it is about SDI. So again, in the storage world, the idea is the same. You have set of VMs, you have a virtual volume, and they are mapping onto the physical one. And the benefits are, you can map it either way in a different ways. And the benefit that are claimed, the migration, the replication, HA, and dynamics thing, and so on. Okay? So here is the software defined infrastructure as a whole, if you look at it, right? So there are, at the lowest level, you have this forwarding element that you can virtualize and so on, storage, computing, and networking. Then you have control for storage as well as networking, and the virtual VM management, which has been going on for a while. Then some level of orchestration at the data center level, the local data center level, and then you have something which is at the cloud level, and you need to do the orchestration at that level. How do SDN and SDI help? So the first thing is you can make your devices much simpler around merchant silicon and make them maybe software based appliances. So that helps you reduce the capex. And then if you have this network operating system through which you can manage this particular infrastructure more easily, that helps you reduce the OpEx as well. If you have support for virtual infrastructure on demand, then you can bring new services to the marketplace, you can innovate faster, you can customize. So that is the other part. Enable innovation at different levels. Okay? So as I mentioned, there are many of these large network operators that are already deploying SDN, and you will hear from Microsoft. But here is interesting thing is the opportunities are at different levels. You can build a silicon which is optimized for software defined networking or software defined infrastructure. You can build the forwarding devices that are much simpler than these vertically integrated complex boxes that the legacy vendors are trying to sell you. You can build the control plane, you can build applications on top of that, you can build orchestration. And so at each layer there is an opportunity, and everything is going to be redone in order to make use of this software defined devices and infrastructure. And then you can apply it in different domains of use. You can explore these opportunities in data center, which is where it is most popular, but you can do it in enterprise networks, service provider network, home networks, and other types of the network, and you can apply it, and opportunities exist in all of these domains. So that is my final takeaway. My final takeaway is SDI represents a major disruption, and this kind of disruption happens to the infrastructure maybe once in 20 years. Opportunity for innovation and entrepreneurship at different levels across different domains of use, and this is just the beginning. So I want to take a minute to talk about that. You may hear from legacy vendors, you just heard from HP. We are very fond of HP, what they are doing in SDN space, but now every vendor is embracing SDN and SDI. But remember, legacy people can all do only so much, and when they are trying to do SDI, the question they ask is, how can I realize potential of SDN while preserving my legacy? As soon as you add while preserving my legacy, you are going to come up with wrong answers. So all the entrepreneurs here, because you don't have to preserve your legacy, you are going to do SDN or SDI the right way, and you are going to bring the most value to the end customers, and that is why you have an opportunity. And don't get afraid of all these legacy people telling you that they are already doing SDN. Okay? With that, I will stop.